Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Wuthering Waves is back at it again with some more news regarding version 3.0. And one of the most exciting little teasers that they're giving out over here is regarding a new repeatable endgame. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Kuro, with one of the biggest sweeping updates to the game, are finally expanding out our endgame options. Because we've been operating with kind of like a system of Wuthering Waves and TOA, resetting, bi-weekly every 2 weeks. And that's kind of like what we've had. You might consider Fantasies 1,000 Gateways. Most kind of like don't, because it is a bit on the easier, more brainless end. Not really something that you put a lot of more effort into, like these challenges over here. So having a third option that's going to be added into that monthly reset that these games have, or that those game modes have, Wuthering Waves and TOA, is something that a lot of players have been asking for. And it appears that we're going to get some more in-depth details for how this game mode is going to work. So let's go ahead, let's start breaking it all down and see just how much cooking has been done. Because the end game in these games is something, it's one of the big things that keeps players playing, especially when you're in a bit of a content drought, right? Especially when you have updates like version 2.7 and there's not that much stuff to do over here, right? That end game is really what can keep a lot of players locking back in, because it is a fresh new experience, once it does reset. So adding another one into here, it's something a lot of players have been looking forward to. Let's see how they did it. All right, doubled pawns matrix. And you can see over here, this is the pilot. So it essentially means it's like a beta test. They want to see what the feedback is. They want to see what's good. They want to see what isn't good. And then from there, right, make adjustments, make changes so that when they fully release it, it's got the most enjoyment possible. The first phase duration is going to be from the 3.0 update to before the 3.1 update maintenance. That essentially means it's just going to run for the entire version. And to be eligible to try out this challenge, you need to get 24 crests in one phase of the TOA and at least 3,500 points in one phase of respawning waters torrents after 3.0 has been released. So basically, the requirements are going to be, you need to go to respawning waters torrents and be able to get 3,500 points on at least one phase. And this is the thing. That's 3,500 total points in this. That's not really that hard. That's not even, as you can see over here, that's getting only this 75 astrite, and you don't even get 4,000 or 4,500. So you can see the requirements aren't even that high at all. 1,750 per team. You're already shooting for like 2,250 anyways. And then when it comes to the TOA, brother, guys, you have 36 total stars. This just means you don't have to do any of the middle tower. You can just do the 2 side towers where there are level 90 enemies, right? And you'll be eligible. So these are not hard requirements at all. You just kind of need like characters that are at least like level 80 or level 90. So yeah, you won't be able to start it if you're like UL 30 or something like that. But if you're like UL 40, 50, it should be pretty easy. Now, let's take a look at the rewards. And they're looking pretty good. I love when the rewards for like a game mode are tied to like what you need to complete it. So you getting astrite, modifiers, upgrade mats, echoes, EXP potions, weapon EXP, tubes, echo EXP, and tuners. This is all essential stuff. This is all perfect. Love to see it, and love to see that they're all gold. So yeah, perfect rewards over here. Not a huge number of astrite. It's actually less than the TOA, and it's actually less than Wuthering Waves. It's like half, if not even less, of those on the reset, and it's a whole month. I would just view it as maybe this is going to be one of those end games that isn't as high in terms of astrite, but it's maybe more challenging and has more like nuance to it. That could be the goal, and maybe that's why the asteroid is a little bit lower in count. So let's see the rules. In Doubled Pawns Matrix, you set up your teams, select the right power circuits, and complete multiple high difficulty. There we go. That was what I was thinking. High difficulty stages, because the asteroid is so low. Doubled Pawns Matrix consists of 2 major zones: Stability Accords and Singularity Expansion. Clear all challenges in the first zone to unlock the next, and completing each stage earns you points to claim these rewards. Very simple. Doesn't seem too hard to understand. So stability accords. You will face powerful enemies that appear in a sequence. So we got the Gorilla, then Glizzy Rider, then the Construct, and then the Lampy Lumen, right? Showing up in that order. You may deploy up to 3 teams with 3 resonators in each team. And what the previous team has accomplished will be carried over. And the current team will continue the challenge with the damage dealt to enemies by the previous team remaining effective. So the way that I'm seeing it played out right now is that you have these 4 bosses in this one like gauntlet challenge. And then you'll queue up 3 teams to take on this gauntlet of bosses. And then maybe once that team is either dead or the time ran out, then team 2 comes in. Then when team 2 dies or the time runs out, then team 3 comes in. You may deploy it to 3 teams with 3 resonators in each. Okay, yeah, we already saw that. And after earning enough points, you can claim the corresponding rewards and will be granted access to Singularity Expansion. So as you can see over here, I'm not entirely sure how the actual combat stages are going to build out, what the mechanic is from switching to team, but I imagine that there's going to be either a time or a survival component to it. Otherwise, it's like, how would one team's be done and then the next team comes in, right? So when it comes to Singularity Expansion, it's going to be the same layout. Powerful enemies that appear in a sequence. And there's no limit to the number of teams you can deploy. And each team consists of 3 resonators. So yeah, it just turns into, I guess, an infinite gauntlet of like the number of teams that you want to use. And defeating all enemies in a round will open the next round. And there's no limit to the number of rounds. This is an endless endgame boss rush challenge, as far as I'm concerned. The first one, you're limited. There's only one stage and you're limited to 3 teams. This one has no limits to the number of rounds. As you advance further, the enemies will be HP inflated. They're just telling you that. The enemies will have HP inflation as you go to higher rounds. But what I'm certain of is that these rewards, a majority of them will be tied to not the endless mode. I'm imagining the only stuff you'll get from the endless mode is like this, and credits, right? And then all this other shit is probably going to be tied to the way easier to complete stuff. And then the endless mode, you know, not too many other things tied to there, because you'll be able to play it infinitely. And I hope they also have something like this tied to completing the endless mode, or like getting to a certain stage in the endless mode, right? A title based off of how far you get into the endless mode. I think the way that this is being laid out right now, I feel like I don't even need to read anymore, because I feel like this is literally what players have been asking for. Now there's so many more opportunities for players to actually use their teams. And I'm just going to be honest. Now I'll be able to, at any point when I'm feeling bored and I just want to play WuWa's combat in a challenging environment that's refreshing and like not just a repeat of TOA stages that I did yesterday, I'm hoping there's a level of randomization added in here as well, right? I'm hoping that, you know, every single stage, there's an infinite number, right? But there's a randomizer built in so that it almost has like a bit of like a roguelike experience as well, maybe, just for some more gameplay variety. That'd be cool. Now let's read the buff system. Because enemies are going to get buffs, but we're going to get the buffs too. Power circuits. In Double Pawn's Matrix, you can select power circuits before starting the challenge to gain buffs in combat. I'm pretty sure there's just going to be ones tailored for every single team. And as you can see, when you're selecting your team, you select one buff to go with that team as well. So you can, as you're, you know, charting out all the different teams that you can use, well, you're also going to be able to assign an individual buff to every single one. So that's pretty cool. Resonator enhancements. In Double Pawn's Matrix, certain resonators will receive special skill enhancements. And as you can see over here, ladies and gentlemen, who do we see highlighted with some special skill enhancements? Who do you see? That's called a Geon, brother. Why do you think they advertised him? I'm gonna be honest. This might be a sign that 1.x characters are just going to get some reworks to their kits. Because do you know what I see over here? I see on this screen an up arrow on one part of his kit. And that up arrow literally is for
The battlefield is dynamic.
His forte
Do
circuit.
not let your guard down.
And so this looks like, to me, Kuro's adding in their highest difficulty endgame mode. There should be no content in the game that's harder than this. And then they're introducing specific character buffs to individual parts of their kit, combining that with the hardest content the game has ever had. This has to be them testing out character buffs, kit reworks. That's what this has to be. They're testing out character kit reworks. Because how else is it that only small individual parts of the kit are getting touched up? I heard people saying, I heard down the grapevine, these were, I guess, unconfirmed bullshit leaks. I heard people saying that that the old characters were just gonna get like a 10% damage buff to all their attacks, a 20% damage buff to all their attacks. But these are individual lines in their kit being adjusted, and only certain abilities being adjusted. These look like kit reworks to me, or actual kit adjustments. And we got Zhang Liao, Jeja, Chang Li, Jinxi, Yinlin, and Jian. I am so excited to see what these are going to be on release. And I am so excited to test all of these out and actually see how these updated kits actually perform. And now that I see this whole thing about pilot, right? The beta, this is like a beta for the new game mode. And it's also a beta for the 1.0 character buffs. So this whole pilot thing actually means a lot more than we thought. And I'm going to be honest, the way that Kuro Games has gone ahead and the process for them implementing these buffs is one of the most genius things I've ever seen. Compare this to Zenless Zone Zero, where they buffed characters like Ellen. And their buffs are so fucking bad that they need to buff Ellen again. That's what they did in their live stream, where they fucked up the buffs completely and had to rebuff a character. This is Kuro beta testing the buffs with the player base in the hardest possible content so that they actually can know whether or not the buffs are good before making them official. So players can give the feedback of, wait, Kuro, these buffs are actually useless. There needs to be better ones. These are actually the real problems. How does a billion-dollar company have a worse Q&A testing process than one that's literally billions-dollar less rich? This is just pathetic in retrospect, now that I'm thinking about it, to see the implementation that Hoyoverse does for their character buffs, because they did it for HSR too, compared to this. Good God, man. Now that I've seen the way that Kuro is implementing their 1.x unit buffs, I'm actually glad they took so long to get here. I feel like they should have happened sooner, but now that I see this is how they're going to test it out, I'm glad they waited this long. Because I don't think there's a way to get a better end result. Because now you're going to have the entire player base's feedback. And like, you can safely say, hey, if we messed up, it's no big deal. We can just do a better job next time because it's a beta. And it looks like there's a lot of other characters that might be getting... Oh, wait, never mind. There's a vigor system. But yeah, the characters that we're seeing on here looks like a good list to me. I would dare say the only additions I would say is maybe adding some more standard units into this, potentially thinking about that. And then I guess Camellia could be considered like, I don't know, is she somebody that would need this help? Or is Camellia already actually strong enough and she just doesn't have an actual sub DPS? I think the situation is Rosia is just such a bad character that she makes Camellia seem not that amazing. I think if she just gets a real sub DPS, she'll be fine. I think she just needs an actual sub DPS that isn't Rosia. And I'm gonna be honest, Rosia needs to be on here as well. She is a absurd standout on the roster, Rosia, as the worst unit in 2.x. Aside from like Chisa. But Rosia is just a bad character. So I think that she's eligible for one of these as well. All right, now let's read Vigor and see how the system's actually going to work. Each time a Resonator participates in a challenge, 1 point is consumed. And Resonators with 0 cannot be deployed. And Vigor is calculated separately for Stability Accords and Singularity Expansion. So if you use somebody in the first stage, you can use them in the second. You're also going to have Demo Resonators, and they are available if you own them. Each demo is set to level 90 and equipped with a level 90 weapon and a correct echo set. And they inherit the resonance chain from your own resonators. So, by this logic, I assume that I can just test out characters for guides in this endgame mode and just not even need to build them before the TOA, right? I should be able to just take the character into the endgame and just film my stuff right off rip. I think all I need to do is pull her. I don't even need to build her. I could just go into the endgame for Lene. Yeah. If you own the character, you'll get a maxed out trial version of them to use. So yeah, if you pull Lene Mornier, you can just immediately use them here if you have access to the game mode. That's what it is. Yeah. So that's cool too. Then what's the point? It's so that you can have fun with the character even if you're in the middle of building them and you don't have to rush the story. You don't have to rush whatever to use them in the content that you want to try them out in. There's a lot of good reasons for this because it's not going to be a min-max build, but it'll just let you see what the character can do in a testing environment with like a decent amount of stress because it's going to be an endgame mode, because the only other way you can test out a character is in the trial, which is like a fucking joke, right? Like, this is the only other spot you'll be able to use them unless you're willing to, like, build them. And so now you can see how they look in endgame without building them after pulling them, which I think that's cool. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It also appears, from what I'm seeing over here, supportive units actually have 2 vigor as well. That's something that I missed. So you can see the Shorekeepers got 2, the Boolings got 2, the Varinas got 2. So, yeah. You'll be able to, I guess, flexibly use those units in way more teams than some other ones. Though, I do feel bad for, like, Brant and Cantarella. Are they going to be able to be used in 2 teams? I could see why they couldn't, because Brant and Cantarella actually deal damage. But they also are the support character on their teams that, you know what I mean, right? So, I do think it's a weird classification that could, you know, get people thinking, oh, like, why are they getting so many privileges and stuff like that, right? So, yeah. Overall, I would say the design of this endgame mode, we haven't actually seen how the combat goes, but I don't think that there's going to be much of an issue because the combat design is never a problem in Wuthering Waves. Aside from, like, you know, bosses like the Lambi Lumen or Hecate because they're kind of ass, right? It's more so the structure. And the structure is what these devs covered over here in this breakdown, and the structure to me is like literally the best thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest. This looks like the best endgame mode I've seen in a gacha before. I love it. I love every single part of it. It's genius to me. And to see this boss rush endgame combined with like an endless thing, combined with like, you know, freely choosable buffs, and then also literally the beta test of 1.0 unit buffs, and then you get to try out new characters as well, just to be able to, like, see, hey, this is what you have to look forward to when you use them in the endgame. Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest, guys. This, to me, looks amazing. Nothing about this endgame mode looks like it has any problems at all to me. If there are any worries that you have as a player, definitely do let me know. Drop it in the comments below what you think could go wrong with this. But as far as I'm concerned, I cannot find any actual issues. What's the cadence of its reset? This is a beta test, a pilot, so it's just gonna last for the entire version. There's no regular schedule set for it yet. But this is clearly, right, like how they introduced Whimpering Waste. They had pincer maneuver warriors, right? They ran like a couple iterations of it, then added WuWa permanently. This is basically just like the beta test for the game mode. So yeah, it should be added permanently in the future. And I hope the reset of this one is somewhat frequently, to be honest. Like, this first one doesn't seem that hard to do. It's actually just one stage, and then you got the endless one afterwards. It's 2 stages. So, yeah, I hope it's one that resets more often as well. But, yeah, those are all just, like, I guess, like, speculative questions regarding, like, the scheduling and stuff like that. No, just based off of, like, unconfirmed details and stuff in future patches. Maybe this is gonna be weekly. Who knows how long it's gonna reset? Maybe it'll be monthly. Who knows? But, again, looks awesome to me. Looking forward to it. And hopefully all of you will as well. Because I have so much content planned for this game mode, right? How good are the 1.x unit buffs? Who is a cheat code for the endless mode, right? How should you know, how, like, who are the best teams to use to, like, conserve vigor and stuff like that, right? This is gonna be a blast. And excited to see how it is when it launches. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.